In this video, I'm going to show you how to remove an old phone jack and patch it in so that the wall is nice and smooth. And honestly, there are a lot of different ways to do this, and I don't even know how I'm going to do it just yet until I start taking it apart. So that's going to be my first step. I'm going to take these screws out and see what we got back there. Flathead screwdriver. This is not working anymore. Everything's running through cable and with Wi-Fi and everything. I'm just never gonna need this again. Here we go. And if you wanted to, you could take each of these off and cap them with a wire nut. But this is low voltage. As I said, I'm never gonna use it again. So I am just gonna cut this and tuck it in the wall. You can cut this with whatever you have. Even scissors will work. Just gonna tuck it in here. And it looks like this is an interesting little setup here, because this is, usually there's a low voltage box that they put in here, but it looks like this is just some kind of ring that they put on the outside. Lift up on this. Aha, interesting. So I can take that out, and if there was a box in here, first of all, this is an outside wall, I would tuck some more insulation in here, and then I could do a patch, like they have store-bought patches that are metal and mesh that can just go over this, and then you can mud it in. But since I have some drywall and there's no box here, I'm actually going to patch it in with a piece of drywall. Another thing you could do if you didn't want to go out and buy a patch and you happen to have some drywall tape, you could just put the drywall tape there and hope that it doesn't bubble out too much. Put a bunch of coats on it, sand it, and you should be good. But we're gonna just take a piece of drywall and I'm just gonna make it slightly bigger than the hole that's already here so I can have a nice patch. Otherwise, if I try and match this, I'll have gaps. So I'll just hold this up and cut it slightly bigger than the hole that's here. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'll show you why in a minute. This blade is a little dull. So I'll go like right here. It's very dull. It's easy to cut. There we go. And then I can hold this piece up like this, make sure it covers everything. And I'm just gonna lightly trace around it with a pencil. Make sure I'm giving enough room so it'll go in there straight. And then I'm gonna mark an arrow going up so I know how this piece is going to go back in. And then I'm going to feel around in here, make sure there's no wires, no pipes, no nothing. And I am going to cut this out. And to cut this, you could use a utility knife, a keyhole saw works good, a Sawzall, whatever you want, but I'm going to use a multi-tool. Patch is going to fit in there. Cool. Now I'm going to use a piece of scrap wood to put in here. It's a little bit bigger than the hole, about 1.5 inches or so. And if this was a bigger patch, I would do 2 of these, one on each side, just because you don't want these sides flopping around. You want everything nice and tight so it doesn't crack. And I think this is going to work. First, I'm going to take 1.25 inch drywall screw and put it right in the middle here, like that, and then I can use that to feed this in there. That plastic, or in front of that plastic. There we go. There. Make sure it's good. Hold it about center, and I can take some 1.25 inch drywall screws, put one up here. when I install these in drywall, I do not want to sink it in too much. I want to just carefully sink it in just enough where I can get mud in there and cover that up, but I don't want to break through the paper of the drywall that's behind there. I think that's a layer of mud, so I'm not worried about it. It's sunk in, that looks good. And I can put one down here. Sink it in. I can take this out. Put my patch in. Obviously, if this is 5/8 drywall or 1/4 inch drywall, you want to match. This does have a layer of plaster on it, so it's a little thinner. It's gonna work just fine. Then I put screws in this. Center it. Again, sink it in just enough so that it can be covered, but it doesn't break the drywall paper. Otherwise, it'll be loose and it could crack. Put one at the top and one at the bottom. So now you're gonna need some joint compound and some tools. Just a 6-inch knife will be fine. You could use a plastic putty knife too if you wanted. I'm gonna use this because it makes the job easier. You need some compound, which this is Easy Sand 5, which means you have 5 minutes of working time. It's a little tricky to work with. If this is your first time, you could just get the buckets of pre-mixed joint compound. To make it easier, it'll just take a lot longer to dry or cure. And some tape. You can use regular paper tape, but I like to use Fibofuse. This stuff is awesome. Never had a problem with it cracking. It literally fuses everything together because it's fiberglass. It squishes right in there and just makes a really nice patch. So that's what I'm gonna use. This you mix with water and you use it real quick. So keep that in mind. Before we get to mixing, I'm just gonna scrape this down. Make sure all the loose stuff is off of it. That's looking good. I could also use some sandpaper if I wanted to. That's good. And then I have a little piece here that has some mud on it. So this is how you would cut the tape. Just cut it like that. And then I'm gonna be putting tape here. So I'll cut this piece, just have the tape ready. And then another piece, like this. So I got my tape ready. This is all scraped down and we can mix the mud. I'm just gonna use this and hope that it doesn't dry up too quick. I'm not gonna use a mixing paddle or anything like that. Grab some of this Easy Sand 5. That should be enough. Add a little water to it. I am replacing this carpet, so I'm not really concerned with it. If I do get water on it or mud on it, like that. Just gotta try and mix this up quick. Grab this, mix it up on here. Have some clumps in it, that's okay. For the first coat, anyways. There we go. Mix it up real good. And this could take a little bit of practice. But basically, you just want to put the mud in here, fill in those cracks. That. You can put plenty of mud on, especially because you're using, or in my case, I'm using Fibofuse tape. And then I'll put a little mud on this side, like this. Put another piece right here. Then I'm gonna hold these, pull it tight, so it flattens out. Push it right in there, like that. And before it dries out, I'm gonna take the mud. Again, this might take a little bit of skill. Practice makes perfect. Spread it all out nice and even. And the reason I like this thing is because I can do one swipe like that, clean up the edges, kind of like that, and let it cure. If you poke it, you'll be able to tell. Right now it's very wet, but it'll cure fast. This will dry completely in about a half hour or an hour, but you can re-coat it, reapply it in about 10 or 15 minutes. If you push real hard and you can't see an indent, then you can put another coat on here. And you can just get some of these crusties off of here. And also take your taping knife, and I'm gonna go this way. Just kind of get any of the big stuff off. And then we can put a second coat on, same way. Do your best. You can always sand it. Just try and get it smooth. And as I said, this takes a little bit of skill where you apply more pressure here and kind of taper it on the edges, kind of like that. And then nice and smooth, real light. Kind of like that. Looks really good. We let it cure. So it's been about an hour, and you can tell that this might need a little more time, but I think we're ready to sand it. And you can put another coat on if you want. This is going to be in a very inconspicuous place, so I'm not worried about it. But if you wanted to put more layers on, basically you just feather out the edges a little bit more than the previous coat, and just try and get it as smooth as possible. I have a light right here. I'm doing what's called side lighting, so you can see all the imperfections and how it's not smooth. And then I will take a sanding sponge. This is 220 grit, and I'll just sand this smooth. Good idea to wear a mask when you do this. Since I didn't put a lot on here, I'm just gonna go nice and easy, feather the edges, and then make the whole patch nice and smooth. Okay, get all that dust off of there. And that patch is ready for priming and painting. So if you needed to do something like this, hope the video helps. Thanks for watching.